We've got some
Hey,
fresh new
I'm
young
Luis.
talent
And
doing some
I'm
things that I know
Luis.
you haven't
And you're
heard
listening to the
before.
Content is Profit podcast. Yeah,
It's like a
happy
party.
Wednesday,
It's a
FONZI.
party.
We are back in Content is Profit with
I
a
know.
favorite thing to do with our awesome guest. What's up, bro?
I'm excited.
I'm-
Wednesday with potential great news coming
Hey,
up.
I know, 2 p.m. Eastern, big news. We can't wait to tell. We were about to
Well, 2
say
p.m. Eastern meeting,
meeting exactly.
3 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Eastern. Potential.
Potential. I know. I wanted to break the news to the team today, and FONZI's like, hold on, let's make it happen first.
Yeah, I don't want to jinx anything, you know.
Anyways.
Not that I'm super superstitious or anything.
Knock on all the
but-
woods possible. All right, here we go. Episode 417, guys. I am so ready. I'm excited. FONZI has talked about this guy for like 2 weeks. As soon as we saw his name in the calendar, I'm like, let's go. I have so many
Yeah.
questions in many ways, but you know,
I think
we'll
we
see.
can learn a lot from today's guest, actually.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, we're good.
I'm always good.
All right, here we go.
We've got some fresh
Hey,
new
I'm
young
Luis.
talent
And this
doing
is
some
Luis.
things that I know
Welcome
you
to the
haven't
Content
heard
is
before.
Profit podcast.
In here, you're gonna get the insights, accountability, and drive to create consistently and increase revenue.
You'll hear from top entrepreneurs, creators, and anything and everything you need to know about content. All this while having a good time.
That is right, and the goal is simple: is to entertain, educate, and turn your content into profit. Let's go.
Bam, 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 bam.
I almost messed up the last line. Episode 400. It doesn't matter. Mistakes can come in and out. You never know.
It's all good. What are we talking about today, Fonz?
As today we're going to be talking about finding more time in your work days with executive assistants. And honestly, we're just going to dive
I'll
in.
name them superheroes, man.
We're going to dive into that world.
I know.
Yeah. It's
I've experienced the good, the bad, and
ugly.
the amazing.
And the amazing.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, and the ugly.
I mean, you know. But anyways, guys, if you're enjoying this show, please go ahead and follow in your favorite podcasting platform and on social media at BIZBROS. Those clips are coming out.
That is right.
They're looking so good.
Yeah,
Gucci,
they're
Gucci.
pretty good. And if today's guests help you move one step closer towards your goal, please don't forget to share this episode and leave a 5-star review.
So today we're bringing you a special guest all the way from New York that's going to help us do the impossible. Find more time in your day to do better work.
Ooh, he co-founded Pro Assisting after spending years as an executive assistant for pretty big entrepreneurs.
He's also a published author, leads a team of 80 assistants, and is a family man.
I think I'm going to go for those secrets on how to manage that many people, you know? Guys, please welcome the one and only Ethan Bo. What's up, Ethan?
Hey guys, thanks a lot for having me.
Dude, we're so excited. I met you a few weeks ago. We connected thanks to Essay. You know, he's a Hall of Famer at this point. He's introduced us to
I know.
so many cool entrepreneurs.
He needs like the trophy of like podcast referral champ. For
and,
2022 and 2023.
Yeah, and you know, Ethan, like it was such a great first impression, honestly. And you sharing your story with me, what you've done in the past and what you're doing right now is mind blowing. So, you know, quick here, like 30-second breakdown of who's Ethan Bull. Go.
You know, 30 seconds. I usually like to talk longer than that. I'm a career executive assistant. You know, I got started in the entertainment industry, which is a common path. You know, and then shifted over into advertising in New York City. I was there about 20 years. My wife is also a co-founder of Pro Assisting along with me, and she's a career executive assistant in high finance and fashion. And, you know, we moved outside of the city when our second son was born, noticed that there was an opportunity in the space and for what we do. And we decided to, you know, position Pro Assisting in that gap, if you will. Yeah. And we've been doing it. We're in our 6th year. So it's crazy that we're this far along.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, you know, when you talk about executive assistants, the first thing that comes to my mind is like these movies, is like big entrepreneurs walking and saying things and like somebody right next to them, like quickly taking notes, you know, like that's, I feel like the first image that comes to mind when somebody says executive assistants.
I have a completely different image in my mind.
I mean, okay,
Can I share mine?
Yeah, show yours. Let's see the contrast. I'm curious.
Mine is like this superpower person that has like 7 different skills, all like to the 9, and then you say something and they make it happen.
Yeah, but exactly. Like, again, the executive assistant, like in the movies that I'm saying, like they make it happen, right? But obviously, and I know that is like the movie portrait of things. I'm just doing this as context to frame the question. But what is it now, especially now in the world where, remote work is massive, right? And people can be hiring overseas. They can hire from wherever, right? Like, what is the right image of an executive assistant? Like, what is it exactly that they can do? And, how can they also give you more time in your day, like you're mentioning?
Well, you kind of hit the nail on the head in that technology has really given us a lot of different options for support at a lot of different price points, and given entrepreneurs, business owners, the ability to really tailor the support that they need with all the different options. You guys aren't far off. I mean, in our book, we mentioned Pepper Potts from Iron Man and how she chirps in his ear and has the ability to foresee around corners that he may not. And so it's not so far off in terms of how we view what we do. We actually did see the gap, as I mentioned earlier, between where kind of a virtual assistant service kind of drops off and then where a full-time a W-2 employee as an executive assistant would pick up. And that's kind of how we position Pro Assisting in that gap.
Awesome.
I can go into detail about how that looks, but really, Luis, it is a jack of all trades. We are that Swiss Army knife, and we can be your business partner, your chief of staff, your project manager, your assistant / scheduler, and your personal assistant. Anything that gives time back to our principal, where we can take things off their plate, keep things from getting onto their plate, and really be that single point of contact for everyone in their worlds, both personal, professional, community, to be the conduit and really manage that flow of communication so nothing falls through the cracks. And the principal feels as if they have that, that secret weapon in their back pocket that they can deploy however they want, that gives them time back.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously a little bit of context on our side, we have a content production, on the back end of what we do, and we help customers with their fractional content teams. And I remember very vividly initially when we needed to go do our first hire, right? That first person, and it was not an easy thing for us, right? You let go of different processes, like you empower that person to go and do things, and we've grown since then. It's been really good, thankfully. Our first experience was not the best. We shared in a different podcast. We can go into something like that. But we started noticing, right, that obviously depending on like the area of the business that you might want to that support, like especially on content, a lot of the conversations have been going to like, hey, you just build SOP, right, a process, and then you delegate to that to a virtual assistant, right? And then the conversation starts happening to like, well, when does that transition from a virtual assistant to an executive assistant need to happen? Is that the same thing? So a lot of the people that were coming into this, right, are having probably these questions, right? What's the difference between a regular virtual assistant versus an executive assistant? I personally have experienced it. We do not have an executive assistant at the moment, but with some of the companies and some of the visionaries that we work with on the back end, we interact a lot with those executive assistants, and it's incredible to see them work, right? Like, it's that you have that visionary, have those ideas, they collect this information, they make sense of it, right? They support, they help in many, many aspects, right? So it takes probably a certain person to actually go execute at a very high level at this point. So, but according to you, like, I would love for you to define like that difference between the virtual assistant and executive assistant, because in my eyes, I see it, but there might be somebody that is the first steps, right? And they might need that help that they don't know they can actually get, right? And they might be searching in the wrong spot.
Yeah. Wow, you brought up a lot there. So,
well, you did say that you wanted a challenge and throw you for a spin. So maybe that's a quarter of a spin. Maybe.
I am ready. I am fully ready here. Well, what we find is that with virtual assistant companies, whether it's overseas or in the United States, they tend to partner their clients with, or they tend to partner their assistants, their virtual assistants, with a larger number of clients, talking 8, 10, 12 clients a month. And a lot of the things that they do for their clients is more task based and checking off that task list. Whereas we limit the number of clients that our assistants have to a maximum of 3. So that worked really well for us when we were leading teams of assistants in our former roles in companies, that 3-to-1 executive to assistant ratio. And what that allows for is a feeling of full service support, because they are focused and in and out of your business many times a day, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And after hours in atypical situations, or if the principal's traveling. So that provides the principal / client the feeling that, hey, I can pick up the phone at a random 2:38 on a Wednesday and call my assistant. And in our situation, 8 times, 9 times out of 10, the assistant's just going to pick up the phone. Or if not, they're going to call you back in 10 minutes. There is a slight juggling or feathering of the work between the 3 clients, but it works really, really well. And it costs a lot less than hiring a full-time assistant, and the burdens that go along with that, from benefits and employee packages, etc. So we really found a happy medium between the two. And it's not to say, like, some of our assistants interact with virtual assistants on their clients' teams. So it's just another tool in the toolbox. But our price point is higher than a virtual assistant would normally be, because you've got to reserve that space in their schedule. And the real benefit, and this is the nub, is that an executive assistant gets to know you and your family and your company more and more and more over time. And that legacy knowledge, there's a huge value in that. And, you'll have a shorthand with your assistant. They'll be able to handle things without you even knowing about it, based on prior experience. So that's kind of how we look at it. And we really have aligned it with what we were doing as top level full-time executive assistants.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I see them as a part of like a secondary brain, or like another model of you. Like, the more they stay with you, the more they learn about you. They just keep growing with you, learning all maybe your little, kinks in here and there that you want to do, or how you schedule things, how you deal with certain scenarios, and they just go at it. And probably the longer they stay with you, the better they understand all these scenarios, and the more beneficial they are for you and the company.
Yeah. And all of our assistants really could command 6-figure salaries working for companies as executive assistants in major metropolitan areas. But they've chosen to go a different route and work for clients instead of bosses, create their own little business under our umbrella. And frankly, the retainers that we charge, we pass 80% of that on to our assistants, which frankly is unheard of in the remote support space.
Yeah.
And that really aligns them with their clients in terms of providing value month in and month out, because it is a month-to-month arrangement. So if we aren't providing value, the client will leave. And the onus is on the executive assistant, not pro assisting, to make sure that that value is felt.
Absolutely. I mean, just recently we've experienced with one of the companies that we work with, they went from a team of like 3 different virtual assistants, right, in different processes. And this is developing new products, developing new things that they were launching, right, to continue to scale the company. And then the decision was made that instead of those 3 virtual assistants, we needed to bring an executive assistant into the team. And that person came in as the integrator, and it has been night and day. Like, so I personally have seen like what that could happen. And, you know, some of these processes were baby processes, right? That maybe needed reiteration. We needed to do it again. We needed to continue to filter different things. We needed to continue to improve on them, right? And maybe that virtual assistant might not be the right person for that specific task or tasks, right? And this person come and touches like pretty much every single person in the company. They kind of bring it all together into one simple thing, and it has been night and day in the last month that we worked with them, and it has been incredible. And this was, you know, if I would have known you before this, I would have like talked to Ethan right now. This was a completely the process that I had to go through was very grueling. It was about 6 months to find that specific person, right? Because they were going through different channels. So I am assuming that now everybody listening to this podcast, you know, versus searching for 6 months, they can just talk to you. And we're going to leave all the info right below and to learn more about, you know, what you guys do and what you guys offer. So I'm very excited for that we can provide that to the community. I think it's the first time that we actually talk about this. And have you seen with your line of work, right? You mentioned that you had experience working with this type of people. Have you seen any specific content executive assistants? And if so, what, why, or how?
What do you mean when you say content executive assistants?
Yeah. So, you know, on our side, right, there's different processes that we manage, like, you know, the research of the thing, the creation of the asset, the production, the distribution, the talking to people, bringing them into your platforms, like the scheduling, all these different things that are part of like a 6-step framework or blueprint, right? Which some kind of overlays, but at the same time, that person could potentially produce also the asset, like the final podcast, like the final video, right? It's not just a video editor, right? So what I'm picturing in my head is like specific roles, like a video editor, for example, could be the same as a virtual assistant for a specific task following an SOP, right? Obviously, there's more creative on that side. But if you're looking at the whole process from research to who do we bring to the podcast, let's take this podcast, for example, right? To pulling out the topics or questions that we might need to ask the right person, the information, then it goes into production, and maybe they handle some kind of production, and then that content goes out. And what's the customer experience? What's the guest experience, right? That might be in my head. I'm like, this is, by the way, off the cuff. In my head, as you're talking, I'm like, wow, this could be incredible. Like that could be a niche on itself, where it's like a content executive assistant that handles all those processes, right?
Yeah, you know, I mean, kind of some of what you're talking about kind of springs to mind an online business manager, an OBM, and the overlap between what a great executive assistant does and an OBM is pretty significant. And we tend to look at it from the perspective of our assistants are technically savvy. They're really smart. They can get smart quickly on things. And if you are willing to spend the proper amount of time onboarding and providing the direction, they can run with it. It doesn't happen overnight. We have to set clear lines of communication as well as expectations and deadlines. And if you're communicating along those lines, then really anything is possible. You know, so straddling the world between content creation and executive assistant work, we do have some assistants who do that, but it's a matter of also identifying their strengths in that process. So you're getting into a bit of a gray area where, you know, the opportunities are endless, but I also don't want to sit here and promise the sun, the moon, and the stars and only be able to give you the moon, you know?
Yeah. I was just curious to see if you've seen something like that, right? Because on our side, we have 4 different people in that process. That is not to replace them whatsoever. They're amazing. They've been with us for like 3 years now.
Right.
But it's like when we're teaching this framework, you know, I think that could be an interesting opportunity, right? If somebody's technology savvy, content side, and I was just spitballing.
Yeah. I mean, the way I see it is somebody like these EAs may sound like a problem solvers, right? And like you said, they get smart quickly. And as long as you're investing the time on teaching them the processes, the onboarding, because that's what I hear a lot of people just go hire somebody and then they expect them to do a certain amount of work without ever truly onboarding them and showing them like the ropes on how to do things and communicating expectations that you mentioned. So I'm sure that an EA can fit into some of these roles, maybe not the super technical part of editing and do all that stuff, right? But for example, I can definitely see somebody like helping prepping and debriefing for conversations like this one, right? That is a task that I take on, and I go obviously do my research, have some conversations. We obviously love the part of having a conversation, but then I can see an EA coming in and then taking that, to the next level, or they're doing research, they're prepping us. Hey, this is what this person has done, X, Y, and Z. Here's a timeline, or on their journey. These are some cool questions. By the way, I also listened to like 20 episodes where this person has been. So I saved you 20 hours. And these are questions that I didn't hear in any of those podcasts. Like, I'm like, wow, that is great. Like, that would be pretty cool, right? So definitely like a superpower itself. You're like acquiring somebody with all this. I think so much flexibility that is pretty.
I'll say partnering.
Yeah, partnering with somebody, right? Good catch, right? And I'm seeing here your website, and you mentioned your wife is your co-founder, and I'm seeing that she actually was an executive assistant for J. Crew's CEO and two multi-billion-dollar hedge funds, and that just blows my mind. Like the amount of skills that she probably learned throughout her journey, and as well, you as well have been again at EA for multiple big entrepreneurs, and I'm so curious on your personal experience. What are some of those, maybe some of the most challenging tasks that you have had to learn throughout this career? Because I'm sure you learn a lot, because now you manage 80 people, and that's not easy feat.
Well, I managed 80 assistants in my previous W-2 role as Director of Admin Services. Currently for Pro Assisting, we're approaching 30 assistants.
Wow.
So it's still a lot of people.
Yeah.
There's no getting around it. But if you guys have seen the show Billions on Showtime, and Axelrod and his assistant, that kind of rings not the illegal stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that rings true in terms of how someone at that level performs and how they leverage their support. When Stephanie was at J. Crew for a stint, Mickey Drexler had 8 assistants, and she was the chief of staff. And she realized she loves fashion, but she doesn't love working in fashion. In terms of the 2 different hedge fund CEOs that she worked for, one of the projects that she ran was the design, construction, decorating of a $50 million estate on the coast of Connecticut. And her principal, the boss, the CEO, brought her into the room in the kickoff meeting. So you have the architects, you've got the project managers, you've got the general contractor, you've got a representative from the town, all there. And he said to him, look, this is Stephanie. She's running this. If she says something, it's coming from me. If you need something, you go to her, and she will find the optimal time in my day to get you an answer. And this is how it's going to work. She's going to quarterback. And so she worked all the way with the architect, all the way to ensuring the art on the walls when the project was finished. And he actually recently just sold that piece of property, and the Wall Street Journal covered it. And the pictures of that are just phenomenal. And it's always a trip down memory lane when we see those pics. But that was just a side project. And so whether you're dealing with personal or business or family or philanthropic work or work in the community, that we really view the EA position as kind of the conduit.
Wow.
What type of person do you need to be a very effective EA, right? Like I'm assuming, but the level that you guys, the level of people that you guys have worked with and partnered with, it's pretty high, and then also can be pretty intense, right? So that probably is a very specific type of person that could actually tackle that. I mean, that alone, you said that's a side project, but as you were talking about it, I'm like, that's an immense pressure, right? Like just handling those conversations and making sure that that's the right decision and different things. So I'm curious about that process. How do you guys got there, and what if somebody's interested in something like that? What should they be looking for?
We really look for, I think, type A personality. I mean, being on time, having a strong work ethic, keeping your own score, having that sense is really important. And repetition, reps, just working for someone for a few years. When we're looking to partner with an executive assistant, I need to see the hard experience up front on the resume, on the LinkedIn profile. And that will give me an idea in terms of how long were they in these roles? Who were they supporting? What size is the company? What industry are they in? All of that provides color to me in terms of the person I'm dealing with, because you're not going to last in a EA seat for 4+ years unless you're actually really moving the needle and a valued member of the team. If there are, large gaps or short stints in roles, I want to know about that. Now, that's really important. But I think the interpersonal skills, the emotional intelligence, the poise, the confidence, all of that is even a little bit more important, because a great EA is not afraid to get smart on something really quickly and do their own research and better themselves and be able to comport themselves to what the principal needs. We really think a great EA is industry agnostic and principal agnostic, and that allows them to really have a trade that they can take anywhere and do anywhere now, thanks to where the internet has come. And the start of that, you go all the way back to the introduction of the BlackBerry in 1999, 2000, 2001. And I can get into that too, but the internet has come a long way. The difference between working on a Mac and a PC is kind of non-existent. Programs are cross-platform. Broadband internet is everywhere. So we're at a really, really interesting time, and now we've got AI coming down the pipe too. So all of that.
Sorry, sorry, Fonzie. Luisa, hug the mic on this one.
You got it.
Normally, it's Fonzie that just takes the mic and disconnects mine, so he gets all the talking, but it's fine. I'm curious. Okay, now we know who the EA, right? The type of person, right? And obviously everybody that's interested, the links are right below to connect with Ethan. But I'm curious now. How do you know if you start needing that EA, right? Like, at what point is there? I'm assuming, right, is probably any level of company at some point, but you also have to be at a certain stage personally, I believe, to be able to recognize at least some of the things that you need support with, right? So based on your experience and what you've done in the industry with your team, what's that starting point? Like, when does somebody say, like, okay, I'm ready for an EA, where can I go? How can I start the process? Like, do I time study? Like, what are the things that I do? Like, what are those initial steps?
Couple of things. One, as we said earlier, there's a lot of options. Okay.
Yeah.
And that opens up a lot of different price points. And that makes this available, or some sort of assistant support available, to a lot of different people. So I can leave that there. And then also speak to what we do in terms of remote executive assistance. Our service kind of is an opportunity to get that feeling of a full service support from a great executive assistant. But our minimum commitment is $3,000 a month for a retainer. And so if you say $36,000 for a year to have access to an assistant who's in and out of my business many times a day, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and they could command $120,000 or $150,000 salary, that's a pretty good value proposition.
Absolutely.
And I like to talk to startups and founders, but if I'm talking to a solopreneur and they're making $250,000 or $300,000 a year as a solopreneur, which is fantastic, we're still probably potentially a little bit out of their reach, because $36,000 on $300,000 a year, that's more than 10%. And you really need to be leveraging that support to justify the return on investment. If it's a solopreneur or a small company and they're doing north of $600,000, then we can be really effective and really kind of integrate fully with the team and move the needle and really allow that client to gain time back in their day to where they can focus on strategy, marketing, sales, vision, and not have to do things that they keep pushing off, like invoicing or managing the inbox or scheduling. And they can create much more flow. The Harvard Business Review says an executive assistant should be one of your first hires. And I firmly believe that as an entrepreneur, you want to know how to do everything, but then you want to be able to hand that stuff off.
I love how your message resonates so much in the production side. We say it's the same thing, like because on the content process, right? We've kind of dabble in most of them. FONZI is really good at the editing side, right? And I guess on my side, I focus more on the system side. So we took it to, a 4 and a 5, and then the people that came in took it to that 10, right? And I remember that was such a huge lift on the production side. And now we live it, right, on our day-to-day. And we're like, I was selfishly asking for us, but where, at what size, where should we be, right? And I think you're speaking to FONZI's ears. So on the invoicing and the technical things, it's like, you do it. But, I think everybody, that will be the goal, right, of everybody. It's like, hey, how can I really hone in the thing that I love doing for my company, right? So this doesn't become a chore. And then find that person that really is really good at what they do and enjoy that as well, to complement the team.
Yeah. People don't understand that my brother is my EA. I'm like, you do this. It's like, he got it.
Yeah, feel that. I feel it.
Ethan, I'm curious about your book. The 29-hour workday, high performers guide to leveraging your EA. Obviously, you got plenty of experience. I'm curious the why behind this book, right? I'm guessing, obviously, share the values, share some of your experience, but is the book also as well kind of like a strategic move to position Pro Assisting, right, the company, and potentially get people that are interested in contacting you and getting in touch with you guys? I'm so curious because and context on this question, right? We believe every company now has to be a media company as well. They need to be consistently producing content regardless. And within that, there is kind of like this pyramid of influence when it comes to content. Like you have short form content, which sure, it can attract somebody's attention, but does it really build that trust that you need to acquire a customer? And then, you have more difficult pieces of content that require more time, more investment, like podcasting, right? Which is, we actually just did an episode on this, right? They did a study that podcasters actually influence more purchases, right? Are more influential at the time of purchasing and following brands, etc., than short form content. But then we see at the very top, writing a book. Like writing a book says status all over the way. Like you are the top of the top in the industry. So that is a context on why I'm asking this question, right? I'm curious. Obviously, you got the experience and everything, but why didn't you decide to run a podcast? Why a book? And how has it worked for you so far?
Well, we're really proud of the book. It encapsulates our almost 40 plus years of combined
Wow.
experience in the CEO office.
Yeah.
So on the one hand, it's to help our potential prospects understand that we know what we're talking about. But
Yeah.
more importantly, we wrote it as an instruction manual
Mm.
for someone who either has an assistant and wants to make sure they're getting the most out of the partnership, or
Yeah.
someone who's never used an assistant and can really look at our book and brainstorm ways that they could leverage such support in their own life. Because before you have an assistant, it's hard to conceptualize exactly how this person will add benefit, add time, and be a true partner. But if you can read our stories and how that relates to our 5 performance multipliers, which we say can add 5 more hours in your day, which is the 29-hour workday,
Yeah.
it really can help justify taking the leap and putting in the necessary time up front so your executive assistant is onboarded properly, and you can think of it in terms of, if I train my assistant appropriately, they're going to take this thing off of my plate and I'm never going to have to do it again. You could always go back and do it again if you needed to, but
Yeah.
that's the goal. And so that's the reason that we wrote the book. I think um, you know, we're a boutique firm. I think that
Mm.
as you said, books can kind of show a level of authority. It's
Yeah.
like kind of showing your work when you take
Yeah.
a test, you know?
Yep.
And we were allowed to do that with this book. And,
That's awesome.
we had some great partners who helped us bring it to fruition. I've written, I think, 12 screenplays. I also have a published graphic novel. So I know how
Wow.
hard that process is. And we didn't enter this lightly. And we tried, I think we succeeded to pack the book with as much valuable, actionable content as possible.
Yeah.
Uh,
I like how you said, it's like you're just giving it away all for free all your 40 years. You put in the work so somebody doesn't have to, gain those 40 years of experience through all
yeah.
that time, right? It's condensed in this one book that people can and they can take action themselves if they want to, right? And I think the lesson behind what you said is, at the end of the day, like, you're giving them a manual, right? And this is what I believe everybody's content should be as well, regardless of the medium of how you produce it, whatever. It should be a manual empowering other people to teach them how to do what you do. Because at the end of the day, sure, there's going to be a percentage of people that are going to grab that and do it themselves. But a lot of people as well are going to be like, whoa, I want to shorten, the learning curve, or I don't want to have to do it myself. I'm just going to go to the expert. And if you were that person providing the information and the resources, guess who they're going to come to when, they have that challenge? They're probably going to come in for you. So I think it was a great lesson. What you just shared about writing this book and the why behind it is very powerful.
I
And I'll just, we didn't talk about this, but we do have a password protected page on our site where we could put that in the show notes. And if you go to that page and enter the password, you can get a downloadable PDF copy of the book, or you can listen to an audio version of the book, your choice. And
yeah.
we're willing to give that to your audience if you want to include that in the show notes.
Absolutely. Yeah, we would love to.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
I really love how you were like, you know what, we're sharing, because we understand our client, like, and I'm gonna go a little bit more tactical, right, on the marketing side, right? You understand who your client is. You mentioned it earlier, right? You understand who do you need to be talking to for the service, but you also understand that there might be people that might not fit that criteria, but we also want to help them, right? So the book is an incredible resource for them to do that, right? So there's a lot of people out there when we share like, hey, because we talk about this on publishing platforms and podcasts all the time, right? And people are like, I don't want to give my secret sauce. I don't want to give this thing, right? And that's driven by a lot of fear. And on our side, we're like, but why not? You're going to build this amazing trust. You know, the last episode that we recorded solo, we talked about the trust, the influence, why people like really, really, really trust when they actually consume the long form content, right? If it's obviously valuable and providing those wins, right? So, you know, you're on the other spectrum. You're like, hey, we'll put everything on this book. You go ahead and implement if you want, right? We're here if you need help. We're going to build that trust. We're going to build that relationship with you. You now are showing on podcast. So I really love that that you guys took that route, because there's going to be a lot of companies that this is going to be very, very beneficial. And to that point, right, we saw a recent launch of a book that we assisted on this the podcasting side, and we saw people. This is a book that the second edition was just published. It was published about 20 years ago, and we saw people that consumed and used their book 20 years ago, and today their companies are multi-million-dollar companies, and they come back at events, and we saw it real there. We're like hugging, crying, and holding the first edition of the book. Like, if it wasn't for this book, I don't know where I would be, right? And that's the power of it, right? Like, you can is generational. You can build amazing platforms based on that and help so many people. So thank you for bringing this in. And I will encourage every single person to, you know, go ahead and click those links. If you can make the investment, right? And go ahead and explore a little bit more of Ethan's world.
Yeah, you know, what's interesting is I have a lot of consultation calls with prospects, and I'm a career executive assistant. I'm not a salesman, and I want to be a resource to get that prospect the support they need for their business. And a lot of times it's pro assisting is not the right fit for where you are or what you need, but you can go over here or over there. And, you know, we are a month to month service. So if our partner executive assistants are not providing value, the client's going to leave. And then all of the front end work in that first month, 6 weeks of onboarding is lost to both the client and the assistant. Yeah. And so we really want to create a balanced relationship where we know we're walking in with clear expectations on both sides, that the assistant knows their responsibilities, the client understands theirs, and that it can be a long-term relationship. And thankfully, we have clients who've been with us since inception over 5 years ago, which is fantastic. And that allows our assistants to create their own little business under our umbrella, and kind of a business with training wheels, because, you know, we're handling the sales, the marketing, the invoicing, the legal agreements, the business insurance, you know, holding clients accountable so they're not taking advantage of assistants, and holding assistants accountable so they're providing value. So it's a really fun time, and content is something that I am always pushing our partner executive assistants to do in their own way, because if you can create not necessarily a personal brand like the Ethan Bull brand, but if you can create EA services or something along that line, and you gain a following and you're consistent and you show up every day, it's kind of like a parachute, to where if something happens, you can always throw your line in the water and say, oh, I'm looking for a new client, and, you know, get a chance to work with me directly. And that is what the internet has allowed in terms of breaking down geographical boundaries, and provided people with service-based backgrounds to start their own businesses really inexpensively, and usually have a better work-life balance and usually make more than they were as a full-time employee.
Absolutely. Love it.
I'm very curious on the process of letting go and maybe the trust, right? Because like you're handing certain tasks, that you want done, and you probably want them done in a certain way. And sure, obviously, I'm guessing during the training process, you are checking, kind of like doing some quality control, if you want to put it that way. But then after that, after you let them go, how do you assure is being done right? How do you measure also the capacity, right? On like how much time are they spending in certain tasks, and can they potentially help with other tasks as well, right? Like how
With
does the
our
management?
with our service, it's more like just go, because it's a flat retainer rate and we don't charge by the hour. We
Yeah.
manage resources behind the scenes, or track resources. So I try to tell our clients, just go and we'll let you know if
We're stretching.
if that's an issue. The more, Fonzie, I get the sense that you are a details guy, that you are a little
Oh
bit
boy,
of
you have no
type A
idea.
personality, and maybe that I want it done my way all the time. I'm just getting that sense a little bit.
You're getting a good vibe in there, let me
Right.
tell you.
And that is that you are the typical entrepreneur, business owner, leader, someone who's type A, who's a micromanager, and it's gotten them so far that why change? And what we find is that if an assistant can build that know, like, and trust relationship with someone like yourself, and they do that by, and I'm going to use a baseball analogy here, but just consistently hitting singles, getting on base with singles. And the more and more they do that, the trust builds and builds and builds. And, then you're going to throw them something and they're going to hit a double. And then they're going to call you up and say, do you realize we've got an issue 3 weeks out when you're triple booked and you're going to be here, there, and the other way? And then you're like, I didn't see that. I didn't know. And then you're going to, instead of being a micromanager, you're going to dip your toe into the water of delegation, and you're going to like how warm the water feels. And then you're going to jump in. And again, it's all based on that partnership. And something that Jeff Bezos has said that speaks to this is that there are two kinds of decisions. There's a one-way door decision, and there are two-way door decisions. Most of the things that you're handing to your assistant are things that can be done in multiple ways, that can be undone if needed, and are two-way door decisions. And if you're leaning into your assistant on those kind of things, you are going to feel that you're getting more time back, that you are focusing on the one-way door decisions that are bigger, that you can't turn back from, and that can have profound effects on your business. So thinking about it in that way, understanding that it's a process and that it takes time, is all part of it,
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
I love it. Dip the toe, Fonzie. Dip the toe.
You got some. You definitely caught the vibes. That's for sure.
So, Ethan, as we wrap up, we have two questions, right? One is there a crazy story along your career that you're like, oh my gosh, like this was the craziest experience I've had with, maybe a CEO, somebody that you helped? No names needed. We're like, and then after that, if you tell me yes or no, then I'll go to the last question.
Okay. So, yeah, I am going to name drop. Early in my career in New York City, I was personal assistant to Nastasia Kinski for 4 weeks as she was shooting a movie in New York City. We were on set, and I was always there. She always wanted me close by. And, for any, communication with her sister or her, her team, or if she needed something. And she was in all of the scenes with Warren Beatty. And so Warren was on set as well. And I'd be standing 2 feet from Warren. And for the first 4 days, he never paid me the time of day. It was like I did not even exist. But over those 4 days, he noticed how I was consistent with my support with Nastasia, how she responded to me and appreciated what I was doing. And on that 5th day, I was standing there and he was sitting down and we were in between takes. And he said, "Hey, Ethan, do you mind getting me a Diet Coke?" I said, "Sure, Warren, no problem." So that kind of started a dance that continued on for the next few days of shooting, where I would get him a Diet Coke. I'd relay some information to his assistant. I would ask the assistant director how much time we had to get that information back to Warren. And so he kind of leaned into that support. And, you know, at the end of shooting, the last day that Nastasia was in town before she flew out, she had these 2 huge bouquets of flowers in her trailer that she wanted to take to the hotel. She was staying in the same hotel as Warren, and I'm carrying these 2 huge bouquet of flowers, and I go up, and Nastasia and Warren are about to get into the limousine, and she's like, "Oh, Ethan, can you jump in a cab and bring those flowers to the hotel?" And I said, "Sure, no problem." And Warren looks at me and looks at Nastasia and says, "Ethan, just get in the car. Just get in the car." So I spent 20 minutes in crosstown traffic in Manhattan sitting next to Warren Beatty as he asked me questions about who I was, what I was doing, what my plans were, where I went to college, where I grew up. And it just reinforces the idea that if you're consistent and you have a strong work ethic, people are going to notice and people are going to lean into that. And providing a sense of service that rises to the level of hospitality can really work in so many different ways.
Yeah.
That's
That is so good.
Such a cool story.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I noticed you put that on the form, a little bit of that, and I had to look up who Warren Beatty is. And for those that might not know, he's actually like a superstar. He's actually, I think, maybe, I don't know if that has changed, but to this point, he's the only person that has won, I don't know if it was like an Oscar on a movie that he directed, produced, and act, like something like that. He wrote it as well. Like something crazy. He's been like the only person that
I think everybody knows who he is except us that we're foreign. So we're like, you know, we just like we just watch superhero movies. That's all. Ethan, this has been so amazing. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing, you know, your wisdom and your kindness and your company and your secrets, everything. Last question.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say you forgot the last question.
No, never forget the last question. Where would you be if you did not publish? Meaning, you know, your book, putting your message out there. Where would you be?
I don't think we'd have a business. I honestly don't. I don't. If people don't know about you and if people aren't feeling that you're genuine and that you're authentic, which is what comes through with interviews, podcasts, our book, conversations on the phone, we wouldn't have a business. And, you know, media and content are so key right now because, frankly, there's a lot of cruft out there, a lot of just, you know, people looking to make a quick buck instead of form long-term relationships. And, you know, if you're starting out in the content game or into starting your business game or, you know, turning your service into a business, patience is key, consistency is key, and content plays a role in all of that. So I just don't think we'd have a business.
Oh, powerful. And thank you. So if you're listening, you know, you get to this point, go ahead and publish. Doesn't matter what vehicle initially, like if you haven't done it, find that vehicle that's going to allow you to be consistent long-term. For us was podcasting, for Ethan was a book and many other things, you know, on the podcasting and what he's doing with this company. So, you know, for FONZI as well.
Yeah.
You being consistent?
Yes. maybe I need an EA to help me in there.
Yeah, I know.
An EA to micromanage. No, I'm kidding.
There you go.
Well, that is like you didn't learn anything, man.
Come on, no. I think, you know, what I see, like, I will picture this is gonna be on my vision board where, you know, Ethan, we're ready for you, man. Here we go. let's make that happen. I fully trust you, which is what I assume it happens, right? And then that person comes into your life, and then you were like, these are the things that we need to get accomplished. There's like a little process here and there of learning, but at the end of the day, it's based on that trust that they're going to perform probably, better than you, right? On that thing, because they've had that experience. So that's the level of trust, that, I put in Ethan and his company. So I'm excited, man, to see next steps on that side whenever we're ready. And I hope everybody listening, go to the links right below, learn a little bit more. And if you need that assistance, that help, go ahead and book that call with Ethan. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I just thank you for the time. I really love what you guys are doing, and I will get you the link of that free download, and people could listen or download our book, and maybe get some ideas on how they could incorporate some support into their world. So, it was a great time. I really appreciate it, guys.
I know for a fact that I'll be listening, soaking in the wisdom of delegating and trusting other people with the tasks.
There's another story about Nastasia Kinski in the very introduction of that book too, that helped me solidify my relationship with her. So you can listen to that too.
Awesome.
Nice. Wait, sorry. I know we say we're about to head out. Last question. Were you always like that? Were you always a person that people felt comfortable kind of like trusting you on handing out maybe certain things and processes, right? And trusted you with the results? Or did you gain that somewhere around your life?
I think working for my dad in the family restaurant really solidified my work ethic and my sense of hospitality, and that the customer is just about always right, except when they're jerks. But I think it was really built way back then.
Awesome. Interesting. I see some commonality here. I worked at a restaurant too, so
Everyone should work in a restaurant at some point.
True. Awesome. Well, that's it. I promise. No more.
Awesome, guys. With that said, thank you so much for tuning to the Contents Profit podcast. Go ahead and follow the show in your favorite podcasting platform and on social media at BIZBROS Co.
That is Ryan of Ethan here, help you move one step closer towards your goal and live a 29-hour workday. Please don't forget to share this episode and leave a 5-star review.
Bye, guys. Take care.
I added an extra and in there.
We noticed.